So when people are speaking, we're respectful, we're listening. If they cite a page in our book, we're turning to our book, we're engaged with one another, we're creating a dialectic to expose what?
Our philosophical extent.
And that gets us closer to the...
Getting out of the cave.
Yes, which is closer to the, starts with a T?
Transformation.
That's a good one, transformation, but it's the T-R...
I'm lost.
T-R-U...
Truth!
Truth!
When I was a junior in high school, Miss Phinney was my AP Lang teacher, and senior year she was my yearbook teacher. And after that we became really close. She became more as a mentor throughout my time in college, and then of course we became just good friends. And a couple of years ago she hired me to work in her department here at Cambridge Christian School. So it's been really special to see our relationship grow from being a student-teacher relationship to a more of a mentor role, and then of course now she's one of my best friends and I consider her family.
Miss Phinney is just probably the strongest person I think I've ever met in my life. She shares so much with us and she's so humbly motivated, and it's really inspiring because I've never had a teacher that shares so much about their personal life with us and isn't afraid to do so. And I love how comfortable she feels with us because it makes me feel comfortable with her to open up to her about certain things that I'm going through in my personal life as well.
Like the Iliad, right?
It's similar, and in the text you read, it compares it to what Homer's The Odyssey did for the Greeks.
So about all those annotations.
Huh?
So about all those annotations.
I know, you like that?
No.
It's good to know that your teacher's that studied, and every year I do a different color. So I can see my layers and how I add my knowledge. Yeah, I study with you guys, and I always have a rule. I need to be sharper than my sharpest tool in my class. Because it's a whole year since I've studied it, and I teach so much every day. There's so much content to know. So I'm studying right there with you, and I learn with you. So now next year, I can pick up on what Jared talked about Finland. You know, and
I love how today I rolled out of bed because I was writing a paper until almost midnight, and that's the day that I'm going to get my video ticket because my hair was I have wavy hair, and it looks like that.
I mean, Miss Phinney is the reason that I came to Cambridge in the first place. She was the person who interviewed me. I was still living in Louisiana at the time, and you could just tell her heart, over the screen. It was when COVID hit and things were crazy, and we had a Zoom interview, and she's unlike any other person that I've ever met. Her heart for the Lord and her students is so evident, and she's become quickly not only a department head, but a very close friend and mentor in life.
As my department head here at Cambridge, she has taught me a lot of what I know. She's a great leader. She has high standards for the students in the department, and of course she teaches the AP classes. I'm in 7th grade, but through her leadership we have been able to achieve vertical alignment, and she really just empowers me to be the best teacher that I can be.
Other lenses might be looked at. Anybody else want to say anything about moralistic worldview? Remember that's platonic. Okay, so I'm not talking about the friend zone. I'm talking about Plato, right? Plato's platonic conceptions, the idea of moralism is be like a no, right?
Yeah.
Let's just be friends. It was good. I thought it was good. Yeah, I think Frankenstein is a narcissist.
Yes.
If we're going from a psychoanalytical point of view, because even when Elizabeth dies, he's not my beloved wife. He's oh me, oh just my life. It's what and he internalizes everything in such a selfish way, and it's so interesting. Yeah, we can go on to that.
oh my goodness, so many complicated things to think about. Really for me at the end of the day, it's just about my students' overall mental and spiritual health. I feel like I use English class as an opportunity to step into their lives and to help them become the best version of themselves. So I see myself as like a professional helper. And I always say to them like, hey, you know, I want you to learn to read and write, and I want you to do well on your AP exams or whatever exams that we're taking. But at the end of the day, when you look back on our time together, I want to know that you became a better person, you know, because we were able to intersect when we did, that you kind of woke up. And so for me, it's so funny, I went into teaching English because I loved English, but I stayed because I love people. And really at the end of the day, I really like, I think it's Maya Angelou quote that she said that, something like this, it said, people they won't remember what you know. They might not even remember what you did, but they're always going to remember how you make them feel. And I hope, and I'm not a perfect person, I screw up a lot, but I hope that by the end of my year with my students, that they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Miss Phinney loves me, she's for me, she's rooting for me, and it could be years and I could reach out to her and she's going to respond and keep cheering me on. I want them to walk out wholehearted in my class. All going back to this because we need to slow down and be good people. You like that transition? About language. I like where that went.
Speaking of capitalism, English.
I know, thank you for that smooth transition, cameraman. Okay, when I think about qualified, I think I just don't necessarily know if I like that word because it feels like I'm self-congratulating, but I feel like people around me might feel like I could be recognized for this because again, I'm not perfect. There's a lot of things I could do to grow and get better, but I just don't quit. I don't give up. And I hope my students see that in me, and I feel like my teaching career has kind of shown that because over the years, whether I'm working with inner city kids or we're up against an AP exam or I'm critically ill, I had sepsis last year and I was writing lesson plans from my hospital bed. I didn't stop taking care of my kids. So I feel like if you show up enough in life and you just don't quit, sometimes good things happen. And perhaps some of the awards I've had and perhaps this one is just because I didn't quit.
What separates Miss Phinney is her empathy. She really empathizes with her students because she's gone through such hard times. Last year, we came back from spring break and I was literally having an anxiety attack, and she was there for me when no one else was, and she was there to tell me that my feelings are valid and that my anxiety is okay, and she literally helped me like deal with the entire situation, and she was there for me when I was literally at rock bottom when like no one could help me.
Easy, got it?
Got it.
All right, good. Moving on to the next slide. You guys are so bright, we're going fast.
I'm hungry.
Do you want some Chex Mix?
No, it's okay.
Because I could pass it around.
I feel like since I came to Cambridge and at such a crazy time, it was, you know, right after COVID and we were still doing the hybrid learning, it was just intense. And one of the reasons why I came to Cambridge was because we have the freedom to create our own curriculum, which is so exciting, but also so overwhelming. And Ms. Phinney just does a really great job of providing you with resources and guidelines, but not making you feel overwhelmed or burdened by the things that she asks. And so she really helped me to, you know, better myself as an educator. She's such a high-level thinker that conversations spark naturally in regards to like what are we currently doing, what could we be doing better. She also kind of emboldened me to become a leader. Like she asked me to share out at some of our department meetings about, you know, strategies and tools that I was using in my classroom. And so she's very, I don't want to say hands-off, she's a hands-on leader, but at the same time she recognizes like the talents of the people who are, you know, under her leadership, and she enables them to kind of step forward and bring those talents to the table and teach others.
I think specifically for me personally, she's trying to get us to be vocal about our beliefs and not to be afraid of what we believe in, and to be able to accurately write about and defend our faith and defend what we believe in. And I know personally she's told me to speak up more.
So I know it sounds silly, but right before we recorded this, it was lunch, and I had a bunch of students come through my room, and they want to book time with me. They want to talk to me. They want they want to tell me about their lives. They want help with things. And those are moments when I'm like, okay, I must be doing something right, because teenagers in general are pretty honest, and they're not going to do what they don't want to do unless they're made. So if they're choosing their own free will in their free time to be with me and to seek me out or to share parts of their lives, then there's something that must have happened in class time that made them feel like they could do that and that they would want to. So it's not this big aha moment like, hey, I've helped kids get into the Ivy Leagues, or hey, you know, I've gotten, you know, awards or recognitions. It's those little moments that kids want to come on their free time and spend time with me and talk to me and let me step into their lives. I think that those are some aha moments that I have.
To me, Miss Phinney is more than just a teacher or someone that goes in front of our class every day and just like talks to us. She literally cares about our spiritual being, our academics. She cares about our emotions, and she cares about every aspect of our lives. She asks us about our friends and family and our home life and everything. Like, she's more than just a teacher to me. She's a mentor. She cares about my soul. She cares about my well-being all around. So to say she's a teacher isn't good enough. I would call her a mentor or even like a family member to me.
Okay, so all this talk about people first, or like what I like to call people over paper in my classroom, because that's the truth. And the paper can represent work that we have to do. It can represent being behind the computer. It can literally represent the paper of a book, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not a total English nerd nut. Like, if I can be home on a Friday night in my pajamas reading a good book with my daughter, yes, I read books to her that are probably a little bit more than what you would read to a 5-year-old, because I'm just infatuated with storytelling and what that can do for us as people to make us more empathetic, more democratic, more kind and connected. We know it improves mental health and brain cognition. So I don't want to make it sound like we're just sitting around and singing Kumbaya in our class. Like, we do hard work. But my students know that their needs come first. So me, as an English teacher, I think my family and I put them through like a whole book club. And we read as many books as we could for my daughter Hadley for her college fund. My dad is retired. He read like 55. But me, as a full-time teaching mom, I read 40 in a year. So I don't know if that's like a little anecdote to show you how serious I am about my love for reading and language arts and sharing that like ridiculous, nerdy excitement with my students, because they know I'm such a geek, and sometimes I can get them to geek out with me. One other really big thing about me that, you know, kind of is on the side, because when I'm with my students it's about them, but also I'm a published writer, poet, I had a photography business. I learn a lot from that and being in the industry, so I'm doing the art and the learning with my students, if that makes sense. Like, I'm still learning and growing. I'm getting my doctorate right now, which I totally forgot to talk about. I totally forgot to even talk about that, in mental health, community care, and counseling, marriage, family, because I just love to take care of people and I love to learn. And so it was an opportunity that I just jumped at when I came out of my health crisis, because again, I realized like I could have died. And like, there was so much left on the table. Like, I have a daughter to raise, I have a community to care for, I still have things I want to do, I want to learn, I want to write. And so that was one thing as I started to get better that helped pull me out, was being able to take care of my daughter, coming back to my classroom, being with students that I love, publishing poetry, like my right ear back right there. So just, I think it's important that my students can see me still chasing my dreams and learning and growing, and being open to learn from them. Like, I think that they know that. Like, I don't know everything. I know a lot about English because I'm a geek and I've studied and I've done this for almost 20 years, but I don't know everything. And so I I love it when they teach me something new, when they ask a question that I haven't heard, when they've accessed a text that I've read a million times and they just taught me a new perspective. So yeah, I just feel like that helps inform the academic side of me, where it's pupil first, but yeah, English and the arts is like a hard second. Like, I just love it. And this is the language that we can study and follow. So we've got, and I underlined it with the green, right? Right now, this unit, we're looking at Old English, and then we're going to go into the Canterbury Tales and look at the evolution into Middle English, right? And then we'll go into Modern English. Now, let me ask you this. What's Shakespeare written in? Modern. It is. Very good. Because you know how many people tell me old?
A lot of people.
Everybody does.
We learned that in 8th grade.
Right? It's not. It's Modern English, believe it or not. And Shakespeare was a man of the people. Well, first of all, I feel like I have a second chance at life. And it's not every day that a 30-something kind of stares down ideas or experiences that you normally don't have until you're maybe, God willing, in your 60s or 70s. So going through autoimmune issues, multiple surgeries, contracting sepsis, losing my ability to walk, being in a wheelchair, being bedridden, and all of that time, and by the way, you know, I didn't handle it the best because I was terrified. And I literally went from being healthy to having a surgery to never recovering for a very long time. I would cry so much about my relationships because I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by esteem. I'm not motivated by accolades. I'm like so motivated about living a purposeful, intentional life, and that the small community I'm tucked in, that I'm serving those people well. And probably one of the worst things about being ill is that I couldn't take care of people. That like killed me. And the few things that I kept saying over and over again is, I can't even take care of my own child. And I can't even take care of my kids. And when I say my kids in our house, my husband knows those are my students. I've had 2,000 or so over the years, and I'm still in touch with so many of them. I mean, I think that's the gifting of, you know, modern technology. And they're still my kids to this day. I started teaching when I was 22. They were 18, and they're still kids to me. Like, we're 4 or 5 years apart, and they're still my kids. And so I think that what willed me to continue, because I was rock bottom and I didn't want to live anymore for myself, was I just kept on thinking about my husband and my daughter and the need to care for my students and my community. So something I've said is instead of choosing fear and pain, I've kind of like looked down the barrel of that gun and said, you know, I can choose that, or I can choose to live, and I can choose love. And my faith journey is still happening as I work these things out, but I really, really believe that we're created by God. He loves us, and that He has intention for us. He has purpose for us. And I definitely felt in my time being so ill that I wasn't done. And I think that's what really shocked me about the whole experience, is like how far I fell short of doing the things that I should have done or could have done. And so I kept on bargaining with God, you know, when I was in bed. I'm like, if you let me walk again, if you heal me, like, I'm gonna teach like my pants are on fire. Like, whatever I do, and again, I'm human and I screw up. I keep on wanting to point that out because I don't want to be idealized. I don't want to be celebrated. I just want my experience to help others experience life and keep going. So, yeah.
I mean, the main thing is, like, she's my sister in Christ, you know. It was a time where she really needed someone to be by her side, and I feel like we're called as Christians to help those in need, and she was in such a low place physically and emotionally, and to be honest, like, I tell her all the time, you know, she thanks me for being there, and I know that she would do the exact same thing for me. Her heart is just so kind and gentle, and it's unfortunate that life has given her such difficult circumstances, but I also think it's enabling her to tell her story and impact the lives of others with how the Lord has brought her out of that dark time. And so, I mean, and it's a cop-out, but she would do it for me, and it was truly a blessing to be with her in those times, because it's developed our friendship in a way that, you know, years of normalcy wouldn't have.
Well, the illness is a defining moment for sure, so we talked about that. It's made me a much better person, more broken, but better person. Back in college, I did not go to college to be an English teacher. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I thought I was going to take the world by storm, and I realized very quickly that that's not what I was cut out for. And my headmaster in the leadership program that I was in noticed that as well. And she kind of said, hey, you know, we're looking for someone to mentor my young nephew. He has some learning disabilities, some physical disabilities. He's, you know, in the lower grades. I think at the time he might have been in 3rd or 4th grade. Would you pick him up from school, tutor him, take him back to the house? We're looking for someone dependable. And I've worked with you, and I would like to extend this opportunity. And I'm like, hey, sign me up for a job. My mom was a teacher, and so was my grandmother. And we have descendants of writers. My great aunt is was a famous history or mystery writer. And so I was like really running away from the English, the writing, the arts, and the teaching, because I thought that, like, to be honest, teachers are so beat up that I didn't want to do that. I was young and I was kind of selfish about my gifts, right? I want to make money, I want to be esteemed when I was younger. And it totally 180, because I don't feel that way at all anymore. And teaching is like the hardest thing on the planet. So going back to the story, I took care of David. I took care of him for several years. And in that time, I learned I was supposed to be a teacher, and I've said that he's my first student. I'm going to try to say this part without getting emotional. But it was spring break, and now he's getting ready to go into 6th grade. His hormones are changing, and he would get these like epileptic seizures as one of his things that he had. And as his hormones were changing, he would get them more. And it was spring break, and I said bye to him. I'll see you in a week, and I'll pick you up from school just like we always do, and work on your reading and everything. And at this point, I decided I was going to be a teacher, but still nervous about it. So I dropped him off, and for the spring break, he and his older sister would go down to the pool and the jacuzzi at their apartment complex. And they went down one afternoon, and his sister said, hey, David, I'll be right back. I'm going to go drop off the DVDs we rented from the apartment complex. When she came back, David was face down in the jacuzzi, and he drowned. And that was probably some of the worst news of my young life. Here I am, like 19, 20 years old, and watching this family grieve, and knowing that this young, beautiful soul was gone. And I kind of decided right then and there that I wanted to be a teacher to honor his memory. So David was my first student, and he made me a teacher. So I feel like my teaching career has been bookends, right? Like, I started with David, and at this point I end with this critical illness I had. And I'm speaking into the camera of a young man who helped me get through things. So I'm humbled and grateful. So the great American poet Robert Frost once said, I am not a teacher, but I'm an awakener. And I hope that that's what I'm able to do with my life. And if I were to be awarded this recognition, it wouldn't be about me. It would be about the people I was enabled to awaken. And it would be about the people who came beside me and my family when I was at my lowest. You see, me sitting at my desk, me teaching my students, me standing and delivering, it's so much more about the community that came around us to enable me to have that miracle once again. Because I was battling sepsis when I was first recognized for the Nobel Place Educator of Distinction Award. And I was too sick to run for this next one in which you invited us. So if I were to be recognized, this would be for my daughter, for my husband, for my mother who taught me everything about teaching. She's a teacher. It would be for the families, and it would be for my students, and it would be for the friends that came around us and carried us quite literally to this finish line.
Dear Miss Phinney, I made this video for you because I believed in you as a teacher. I believe that you should be recognized for all the great things that you do as a teacher for us as a class. I've seen everything that you've sacrificed in this past 2 years being your Lang and Lit student. You pour into us. And even when you're at your very lowest, very ill, you give all you can to us. You were in your hospital bed, creating assignments and still grading papers and making sure that your students were taken care of. When I walk into your classroom, I know that there will be some days where I just have to work hard, and it's stressful at times, but I really feel like your classroom is a safe place and a place where I can be encouraged to be different and just be better as a student. And I feel like it's a safe place. And one thing about you that is different than any other teacher that I've ever had is I'm super excited when I find something in text, or I make a discovery, or I learn something new, because I can't wait to show that to Miss Phinney. And we all feel that way. If we're reading a text in class and we see something, we get super excited to tell the whole class, because oh, we want Miss Phinney to see that we're invested and we're learning. Just everything that you do, you pour into us and your sacrifices, and we can tell, and we love you as your students.